The morning sun in Ridgeview always felt gentler than anywhere else. Or maybe Emily only believed that because she'd never known another home. The Carsons' house stood at the edge of the maple-lined street, white walls gleaming under the golden light. From the outside, it looked like every dream a picture frame could hold. Laughter, stability, love. Inside, breakfast was a well-rehearsed ritual. Her father, Dr. Michael Carson, read the local paper by the window, glasses slipping down his nose. Her mother, Laura, hummed softly while flipping pancakes, sunlight threading through her hair. And Emily, 17 and restless, scrolled through her phone at the table, pretending she didn't notice how her parents never really looked at each other anymore. "You've got that art show next week, right?" Michael asked, eyes still on the paper. "Mm-hmm," Emily murmured. "You'll win something this time," he said absently. Laura smiled, but it was tight, controlled. "She's talented. Not everything's about winning, Michael." Their words floated like dust in the morning light, polite, practiced, unreal. Emily caught the faintest flicker in her mother's eyes when her father's phone buzzed. He silenced it quickly, but Laura noticed. Emily did too. In Ridgeview High, everyone admired Dr. Carson. He was the charming town physician, respected, handsome in an effortless way, the man who always stopped to wave at neighbors. And Laura? The woman who kept everything perfect, from dinner parties to the garden roses that never seemed to die. To Emily, they were the ideal her friends envied. That illusion stretched further whenever Sophie Hale came over. Sophie was Emily's best friend since kindergarten, all laughter and wild energy. She spent so much time at their house that Laura jokingly called her the second daughter. Sophie's jokes filled the quiet places in Emily's world. That ça tous, day. The girls sat in Emily's room, music humming low, while Laura called up the stairs for help setting the dinner table. Sophie grinned and rolled her eyes. "Your mom's like Martha Stewart with a caffeine problem." Emily laughed. "Yeah, she lives for dinner parties. My dad says she plans them like surgeries." "Perfect couple, perfect daughter," Sophie teased, flicking a pillow at her. Emily smiled, but it faltered before it reached her eyes. "Perfect, yeah." That night, as laughter echoed from downstairs, Emily stood by the staircase, watching her parents entertain guests. Her father's hand rested lightly on Laura's back, but the gesture felt rehearsed. The way an actor remembers his lines. When Laura walked away, his smile dropped for just a second. From her angle, Emily could see him glance at his phone again, quick, cautious. The screen's glow reflected off his glasses. Later, she and Sophie joined the table, and everyone posed for a photo, the Carsons and Sophie, smiling in the warm glow of candles. Laura leaned into Michael. He smiled for the camera. Sophie's laugh rang out just as the flash went off. Click. A perfect family, frozen in light. But as Emily looked at the picture afterward, something gnawed quietly at her. Not a thought, not yet a suspicion, just an ache she couldn't name. The photo captured everything that was right, and everything that was wrong. That night, after everyone left, she passed by her parents' bedroom. Their voices were low, not fighting, not soft either, just distant. She paused, hand hovering near the doorknob, then stepped away. In her own room, Sophie had fallen asleep on the floor, clutching a blanket, her face calm under the lamplight. Emily smiled faintly, grateful for at least one thing that still felt pure. She turned off the lamp, letting the shadows swallow the day. Outside, the wind rustled through the maples, brushing against the glass like a whisper. Tomorrow, they would take more photos, smiles, hugs, sunlight, and frame them on the living room wall. None of them knew that one picture would soon destroy everything. The morning of Emily's 18th birthday arrived with confetti-colored sunlight and the smell of vanilla frosting. Laura had gone overboard, as usual. Streamers curling from every corner, a cake so elaborate it looked almost too perfect to cut. Ridgeview neighbors trickled in, smiling, carrying small gifts wrapped in pastel paper. Michael was in unusually high spirits, camera slung around his neck like a proud documentarian. 18, Em. You'll never have another day like this, he said, kissing her cheek before taking yet another photo. Flash, click, smile, repeat. Sophie arrived last, wearing a soft lavender dress that shimmered when she moved. "Happy birthday, sunshine," she shouted, pulling Emily into a tight hug. She smelled like jasmine and something sweeter. Confidence, maybe. Sophie always had that. The two girls laughed through the afternoon. They cut the cake, took selfies, teased each other about old crushes. For a while, everything felt like the way it used to. Easy, bright, untouched. But somewhere between laughter and the sound of camera shutters, Emily noticed the small things again. Her father's phone that never left his pocket. The way Laura's smile faltered when Michael disappeared briefly into the study. When the sun began to sink, Michael called everyone together. "One last picture," he said, motioning for Emily, Laura, and Sophie to stand near the window. He positioned them carefully, hands gentle on their shoulders. "Smile for me, my girls." The flash caught them mid-laughter. Emily leaning toward Sophie, Sophie tilting her head toward Michael, who looked at her just a heartbeat too long. It was so subtle that no one saw it in the moment. No one but the lens. Later that night, after the guests were gone and wrapping paper littered the floor, Emily sat cross-legged on her bed, scrolling through the photos on her phone. Sophie had fallen asleep beside her again, half covered by a blanket. Her soft breathing filled the quiet room. Emily swiped through images. The cake, her mom laughing, the backyard glowing under string lights. Then she paused on one frame, the group photo. At first, she smiled. It looked perfect. But the longer she stared, the colder she felt. Michael wasn't looking at the camera. His gaze was fixed. Not on her, not on Laura, but on Sophie. And Sophie's expression. It wasn't just a smile. It was something gentler, knowing. Emily zoomed in, her pulse quickening. The space between them was small, too small. A flicker of something intimate, almost hidden, lived in that single frame. She blinked, telling herself she was imagining it. Her dad loved Sophie like his own daughter. That's all it was. That had to be all it was. Still, the image burned in her mind long after she set the phone aside. She turned off the light, but the glow of the screen seemed to linger behind her eyes. Down the hall, Michael's footsteps echoed softly. She heard the faint creak of the study door, then silence. Beside her, Sophie stirred, mumbling something incoherent in her sleep. Emily lay still, staring into the dark, her stomach twisting with a feeling she couldn't yet name. Tomorrow, she promised herself, she'd forget about it. It was just a picture, just a trick of the light. But the seed had already been planted, and in the days ahead, it would grow into something she could never unsee. The house was quiet, the kind of deep quiet that only came after midnight. Laura was asleep. The television murmured faintly in the background, and the faint hum of the refrigerator filled the stillness. Emily sat at the kitchen table, papers spread out, laptop open, and panic rising. Her project deadline was in the morning, and her laptop's battery had just died. She needed a quick fix. Her dad's tablet sat on the counter, plugged in beside the coffee maker. He always used it for work, patient files, appointments, maybe a few news articles. She hesitated only a second before grabbing it. "Just for an hour," she whispered to herself. The screen unlocked easily. He must have used the same passcode for everything. She smiled faintly at how predictable he was. But when she opened the browser, a notification banner slid across the top. Message from S. Her breath caught. She almost ignored it. But the preview line burned through her chest before she could look away. Last night was perfect. Same time tomorrow? Emily froze. Her pulse hammered in her ears, the sound drowning out the quiet hum of the kitchen. She read it again, certain she'd misread, but the words didn't change. Last night. Perfect. Tomorrow. She opened the message thread, hands trembling. Dozens of texts filled the screen, some deleted, others half there, broken by time gaps. But the tone was unmistakable. Flirty, familiar, wrong. "You looked amazing tonight. Can't stop thinking about you. Wish we didn't have to hide." Each word cut a little deeper. Emily scrolled faster, desperate to see who S really was, until she saw the tiny, unmistakable emoji. Sophie's signature. She used it after every text, every caption, every note she'd ever written to Emily. Her chest tightened until it hurt. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "It can't be." She wanted to stop reading, but she couldn't. Michael. Same plug. Ace tomorrow. Be careful coming in. S. You worry too much. It's only us. Emily's vision blurred. The screen seemed to pulse beneath her fingers. Her dad's laughter from earlier that evening echoed faintly in her mind, that warm, familiar sound she'd grown up with. Suddenly it felt foreign, hollow. The tablet slipped from her hands and landed softly on the table. She pressed her palms to her face, breathing hard, forcing herself not to scream. The message tone chimed again. Another bubble appeared. "Good night, Em. I can still taste you." Emily shoved the tablet away as if it were something toxic. Her stomach churned violently. She stumbled up, knocking over a chair, and caught herself against the counter. Her heart pounded so loudly she swore it would wake the whole house. In the hallway mirror, her reflection stared back, pale, trembling, eyes wide with disbelief. The girl who'd believed her parents had the perfect marriage, the girl who'd trusted her best friend. She wanted to run upstairs, wake her mother, confess everything. But the thought of Laura's face, of her heart breaking, froze her in place. Instead, she sank to the floor, hugging her knees, trying to breathe. Every memory of Sophie, sleepovers, inside jokes, whispered secrets, replayed like cruel echoes. Her best friend. Her father. The phone buzzed again. She didn't look this time. She didn't have to. The truth had already carved itself into her mind. From upstairs, a door creaked, her father's footsteps moving softly toward the study. Emily wiped her tears and stood, silent. She placed the tablet back exactly where it had been. Tomorrow, she would pretend she'd seen nothing. But tonight, the perfect family portrait had cracked beyond repair. The next morning, sunlight felt wrong. Too bright, too cheerful, as if the world hadn't shifted overnight. Emily moved through the house like a ghost. The smell of coffee drifted from the kitchen, her father's low voice mixing with the sound of the toaster. It was all so ordinary that it made her stomach twist. Michael smiled when she walked in. "Morning, birthday girl." His tone was warm, easy, the same voice that had read her bedtime stories, that had comforted her after bad dreams. But now every word sounded poisoned. "Morning," she murmured, keeping her eyes on the cereal box. He reached out to ruffle her hair, but she flinched before she could stop herself. His hand froze mid-air, a flash of confusion passing through his eyes before he lowered it. "You okay?" "Just tired," she said quickly. He nodded, but she saw the flicker of something, guilt, maybe, before he turned away. When she reached school, Sophie was waiting by the lockers, waving like nothing in the world was wrong. "Hey, stranger. You disappeared after the party?" Emily forced a smile. "Yeah, just crashed early." Sophie grinned. "Your dad texted me, by the way. Said thanks for helping out. He's sweet, you know." Her words hit like ice water. Emily's throat went dry. "Yeah," she said slowly. "He's sweet. You okay?" Sophie tilted her head, studying her. "You look pale." "I didn't sleep much," Emily replied. "Then you need caffeine." "Let's go," Sophie said, looping her arm through hers. It took everything in Emily not to pull away. For the rest of the day, Sophie was her usual self, laughing in class, teasing teachers, making plans for the weekend. Emily watched her closely, searching for cracks, for guilt, for something that proved what she'd read wasn't real. But Sophie seemed pure, innocent. By lunch, Emily almost convinced herself she'd imagined it. Maybe there was another S. Maybe it wasn't Sophie's emoji. Maybe her dad's messages were about something else entirely. But that night, when she passed her father's office, the door was closed and the faint glow of his tablet lit the floor beneath the frame. She stood outside, listening. The silence on the other side was heavy, careful. Her mother called from upstairs, breaking the spell. Emily backed away quickly, heart pounding. The following days turned into a blur of pretending to laugh with Sophie, pretending not to notice when her father disappeared for late appointments, pretending that her mother didn't see how quiet she'd become. Each lie weighed heavier than the last. One afternoon, Sophie showed up at her house unannounced, holding 2 iced coffees. "Surprise!" she chirped, stepping inside. Michael was home early. He appeared in the hallway, tie loosened, eyes widening just a fraction when he saw her. Sophie waved casually. "Hi, Dr. Carson." "Hey, Sophie," he said softly. "Good to see you." Their eyes met for a moment too long, a fraction of a second. But Emily saw it. A flicker of warmth, recognition, guilt. She couldn't unsee it now. She swallowed hard, her voice small. "Let's go to my room." In the safety of her room, Sophie talked endlessly about college, about a new guy in her art class, about everything except the truth. Emily nodded, laughed in the right places, but inside, she was screaming. She wanted to blurt it out. I know. She wanted to demand, why him? But the words stayed buried, tangled in her throat. That night, after Sophie left, Emily stared at her reflection in the dark window. The girl staring back looked older, colder. Downstairs, her father's office door clicked shut again. And in that tiny sound, Emily realized the distance between truth and destruction was shrinking fast. By the end of the week, Emily couldn't take the guessing anymore. Every smile, every text notification, every minute her father spent behind that locked office door chipped away at her sanity. She needed proof, not whispers in her head, not half-seen glances. Real, undeniable proof. That Sunday, her parents left early for church. Michael claimed he had clinic files to organize afterward, while Laura planned to stop by the florist. Emily pretended to have a headache and stayed home. As the sound of their car faded down the street, she walked straight to his office. The room smelled faintly of coffee and aftershave, sharp, clean, and cold. She stood still for a moment, her pulse loud in her ears. Then she opened his desk drawer and pulled out the small black webcam she'd ordered online 2 nights before. It fit in her palm, no larger than a button. Her hands shook as she attached it to the bookshelf corner, angled perfectly toward the desk. It blended into the shadows, invisible unless you knew where to look. "Just one day," she whispered. "Just to know." She connected it to her laptop, tested the feed. The image was clear, crisp enough to read a name tag across the room. Satisfied, she closed everything up and slipped out before anyone returned. That night, sleep was impossible. She stared at the dark ceiling, her thoughts a blur of guilt and dread. What if she was wrong? What if she ruined her family for nothing? But beneath those fears was something deeper, a voice whispering that she already knew the answer. The next afternoon, her father came home early. "Just catching up on patient reports," he told her mother. Laura smiled, distracted, before leaving for her book club. Emily stayed upstairs, pretending to study, watching the live feed through trembling fingers. At first, it was uneventful. Michael pacing, typing, answering calls. Then, at 4:12 p.m., the door opened. Sophie. Emily's body went rigid. Sophie stepped inside casually, a small smile tugging at her lips. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it, arms crossed. Michael stood, hesitating only a moment before walking toward her. The sound had no volume, but Emily didn't need it. Their expressions said everything. His smile was soft, tender. Hers was shy at first, then certain. When he brushed her cheek, Emily's stomach twisted violently. Sophie said something, laughing nervously. Then Michael cupped her face and kissed her. Emily's breath left her body. For a moment she couldn't move, couldn't think. It was like the world stopped spinning, the truth pressing down so hard she thought she might shatter under it. She watched Sophie's hands slide around his neck, their bodies close, familiar, practiced. Nothing about it was new. It wasn't a mistake. It was a routine. Emily slammed her laptop shut, heart hammering. The image burned behind her eyelids anyway, her best friend and her father, tangled together in betrayal. She stumbled into the bathroom, barely making it before the sob tore out of her. It wasn't just anger or disgust, it was grief. The kind that hollowed you out from the inside. The kind that didn't have words. When she finally lifted her head, her reflection looked foreign. Pale skin, red eyes, trembling lips. She didn't recognize the girl staring back. She wiped her face and whispered, "You wanted the truth. Now you have it." Downstairs, the faint hum of her father's car starting drifted through the house. Sophie would leave soon, smiling, pretending nothing happened. Emily sank to the floor, the silence deafening. Tomorrow, she decided, she wouldn't cry. Tomorrow, she would start keeping score. The morning after she saw the footage, Emily couldn't bring herself to speak. The house smelled of coffee and rain. Her father hummed softly in the kitchen, as if nothing in the world had changed. Sophie texted her twice, "Miss you, Em," and "You okay?" And Emily stared at the messages until the words blurred. Then she deleted them. She spent most of the day in her room, curtains drawn, her laptop closed. Her mind replayed the scene over and over like a cruel film reel. Sophie's laughter, her father's hands, the quiet familiarity between them. It didn't feel real, and yet it was the only truth left. That night, she pulled an old notebook from her drawer. Its cover was worn, pages soft from years of half-finished doodles. She opened to the first clean page and wrote one word across the top. Why? The pen didn't stop after that. She wrote about the party photo, the late-night message, the way her father looked at Sophie when he thought no one was watching. Each line cut deeper, bleeding onto the page. Her handwriting grew erratic, sharp. He lied to us. He lied to Mom. He lied to me, and she helped him do it. Hours passed without her realizing. The rain tapped against the window like a heartbeat. Somewhere downstairs, Michael's phone buzzed. She imagined it lighting up with Sophie's name, S. Her hand trembled as she wrote, "I should show Mom. I should tell everyone. But I can't. Not yet. Not until I know how to make them feel what I feel." By the third entry, the diary no longer felt like therapy. It felt like a plan, a blueprint for revenge. Every night, she added more. What time her father came home, how long his office door stayed shut, what Sophie posted online. The patterns became clear. Wednesdays and Fridays, after clinic hours. Always the same time. Always the same lie. The writing changed, too. The early entries were full of disbelief. Now they dripped, with purpose. He deserves to lose everything, and she deserves to watch him fall. Emily found herself talking to the pages as if they were alive, confessing, cursing, promising. The diary became her only confidant, her only witness. Some nights, she'd read back what she wrote and feel frightened by her own words. But then she'd remember the video, the way Sophie's hand rested on his chest, and the fear would vanish, replaced by cold determination. Her mother remained oblivious, lost in dinner plans and social calls. The house still smelled of roses and perfection. But beneath the surface, something inside Emily was breaking quietly, piece by piece. One evening, while tucking the diary under her mattress, she whispered, "They think I don't see. They think I'll stay quiet." She paused, looking toward her father's office door glowing faintly down the hall. "But I'm not quiet anymore." The words felt like both confession and promise. Downstairs, Michael's laugh echoed faintly, a sound once comforting, now unbearable. Emily opened her window, letting the cold air rush in. Her journal sat open on the desk, ink still wet, the last line stark under the lamplight. "Tomorrow I stop writing and start acting." Friday night arrived like a storm Emily could see coming but couldn't escape. The house glowed with soft light, the table set perfectly. Laura's signature touch. Candles flickered beside crystal glasses, a roast rested in the center, and laughter echoed faintly from the kitchen. It should have been a normal family dinner. Except Sophie was coming. Laura smiled as she arranged napkins. "It's been ages since Sophie joined us. You two used to be inseparable." Emily forced a nod. "Yeah, ages." Inside, her pulse thudded like a warning drum. Her diary lay hidden upstairs, its latest page ending with the words, "I'm done pretending." The doorbell rang. Michael was the first to answer. His tone softened, too much, when he said her name. "Sophie, there you are." Emily stayed frozen in the hallway as Sophie stepped in, all bright eyes and easy charm. She wore a simple blue dress, her hair loose, smile radiant. To anyone else, she was still the same sweet girl next door, but to Emily, she was poison wrapped in innocence. "Hey, birthday girl," Sophie said warmly. "I brought dessert." "Thanks," Emily murmured. "You didn't have to." Their eyes met. Sophie's full of warmth, Emily's empty of trust. Dinner began with the clinking of silverware and polite conversation. Laura chatted about neighborhood gossip. Michael added occasional comments, his tone measured. Emily pushed food around her plate, barely tasting it. She kept watching them, the way Sophie laughed at his jokes, the way his eyes softened whenever she spoke. It was subtle, but it was there. The table felt smaller, the air thicker. "Emily, you're quiet tonight," Laura said, cutting another piece of roast. "You two have a fight?" "No," Emily said quickly. "Just tired." Sophie leaned forward, smiling. "Yeah, we've been pulling late study sessions lately. She's probably exhausted." The words hit like a spark in dry G. "Rass." Emily froze. Late study sessions. The exact phrase Sophie had used in her text messages. The same excuse her father had given to explain coming home late. Her chest tightened, her fingers curled around her fork. Laura smiled innocently. "That's dedication. I'm glad you girls are still keeping each other focused." Emily's throat burned. She felt the scream rising before she could stop it. "Yeah," she said, her voice trembling. "Sophie's been very dedicated." Michael's fork paused mid-air. His eyes flicked toward Emily, warning her without words. Sophie looked confused, nervous laughter bubbling out. "Emily," Laura said lightly, "don't be sarcastic, honey." But Emily couldn't stop. The truth had been caged too long. "You have no idea how hard Sophie's been working," Emily said sharply. "She's practically here every night. You must have noticed, Dad." Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. Laura blinked, smile faltering. "Michael?" He cleared his throat. "She's exaggerating," he said calmly, but his knuckles were white against his glass. "They study together sometimes, that's all." Sophie's voice wavered. "Emily, what's wrong with you?" Everything inside her cracked at once. "What's wrong with me? You're what's wrong!" The words exploded before she could pull them back. The table trembled as she slammed her fork down. Laura gasped. Michael stood abruptly, his tone low, controlled. "Enough." But Emily's tears were already falling. "You think I don't know? I know everything." Sophie's face drained of color. Laura looked from one to the other, confused, frightened. "What are you talking about?" Michael's voice broke through the chaos. "Emily, stop!" For a moment, no one moved. The only sound was the ticking of the dining room clock. Then Emily pushed back her chair and ran upstairs, leaving shattered silence behind. Downstairs, Laura's trembling voice, final. I broke it. "Michael, what does she mean?" He didn't answer. Sophie stared at the floor, her hands shaking. Upstairs, Emily locked her door and pressed her back against it, sobbing. The truth was out. Not fully, not yet, but enough to make the walls start cracking. Tomorrow, there would be no going back. Emily didn't sleep that night. The argument replayed in her head. Her mother's confusion, Sophie's pale face, her father's commanding silence. The walls of her room felt tighter with every breath. Downstairs, she could hear muffled voices, Laura demanding answers, Michael deflecting them. By dawn, the house was silent again. But something inside Emily had shifted. Fear no longer ruled her. Anger did. She sat at her desk, laptop open, the faint glow of the screen washing over her trembling hands. The folder labeled Office Cam blinked like a heartbeat. Her proof, her weapon. The video had haunted her for weeks. Sophie entering the office, laughter, a whisper, then her father's voice saying, "No one can know, not even her." Her cursor hovered over the play button. She forced herself to watch it again. Every second of betrayal that had burned her world to ash. "You took everything from me," she whispered, voice breaking. "Now I'll take everything from you." She opened a new browser tab, created a channel. Username, The Doctor's Secret Life. Profile picture, a gray silhouette. No face, no trace. When she uploaded the video, her hands barely stopped shaking. She added only one line to the caption. "The man everyone trusts isn't who you think he is." Then she hit post. For a moment, the world stayed still. The upload bar reached 100%. Done. A sickening mix of relief and panic flooded her chest. She closed the laptop, but her heart wouldn't stop pounding. By afternoon, it began. Her phone buzzed with notifications. Texts, calls, whispers spreading like wildfire. Classmates sent messages she didn't answer. "Is that your dad?" "OMG, Emily, what's happening?" At the grocery store, Laura noticed people staring. Two women whispered near the freight aisle, holding up their phones. "Isn't that Dr. Carson?" By evening, the video had been shared across Ridgeview. Someone posted it on Facebook with the caption, "Local doctor exposed for affair with teen girl." The words made Emily's stomach twist. She hadn't meant for it to become this. Outside their house, camera flashes glimmered through the windows. News vans parked by the curb. Laura shouted from the living room, voice trembling, "Michael, what have you done?" He didn't answer, just stood there, eyes hollow, watching his reputation crumble on the TV screen. Sophie called repeatedly. Emily ignored every ring. She imagined Sophie's voice, desperate, panicked, pleading. It didn't matter now. The world knew. But as the hours dragged on, the weight of what she'd done began to press down. She walked to her window and looked out. Their once peaceful street was now filled with flashing lights and curious faces. "You wanted truth," she whispered to herself. "Now you've got it." A small, broken laugh escaped her. It sounded nothing like the girl she used to be. Her door creaked open behind her. Laura's voice came, hoarse from crying. "Emily, did you do this?" Emily didn't turn around. "He deserved it," she said softly. "They both did." Laura's silence was heavy. Then barely a whisper. "You don't understand what you've started." Emily closed her eyes. She didn't need to. She already knew. Because once the truth is unleashed, it never stays under control. The next morning, Ridgeview was no longer quiet. It was a storm of whispers. By the time Emily came downstairs, the phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, patients, former friends. The TV blared in the background. Local physician accused of affair with daughter's best friend. Footage leaked online. Laura sat on the couch, still in her nightgown, eyes swollen from tears. She looked like someone who'd aged 10 years overnight. Her trembling hand clutched a coffee mug she hadn't touched. When she finally turned to Emily, the look on her face wasn't anger. It was heartbreak. "You didn't even tell me," she said quietly. "You let me find out with the rest of the world." Emily's throat tightened. "Mom, Don't," Laura interrupted, voice cracking. "Don't you dare justify this." Michael stood by the window, staring at the reporters outside. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. The proud, confident doctor was gone, replaced by a hollow man drowning in shame. "They revoked my license this morning," he said flatly. 30 years of work. Gone. Emily's stomach twisted. She wanted to say she hadn't meant for it to go this far, that she only wanted the truth to come out. But the words felt meaningless now. Michael turned toward her, voice low but sharp. "You wanted to punish me. Congratulations. You did." "You punished yourself," Emily snapped, tears forming. "You lied to all of us. To her." Laura flinched at the word her. Sophie's name wasn't spoken again that day. No one needed to. The whole town already knew. She had vanished overnight, deleted her accounts, dropped out of school, left Ridgeview without a trace. Rumors filled the vacuum, that she'd been taken by her parents, that she was hiding out in another state, that she'd tried to hurt herself. Emily didn't know what to believe anymore. All she knew was that every glance from her mother now carried of love and disgust. That afternoon, she walked to the mailbox and found a letter. Termination of medical practice, Dr. Michael Carson. She handed it to her father silently. He didn't look at it, just tore it once, twice, until pieces fell to the floor. "You ruined us," he whispered. She stared back, her voice trembling. "You ruined me first." Laura stood suddenly, shouting through tears. "Stop it! Both of you! There's nothing left to save!" The sound of her cry filled the house, echoing off the walls like something breaking for good. She sank to her knees, sobbing. Emily rushed forward, but Laura pushed her away. "I don't even know who either of you are anymore," she said. "My husband's a liar, and my daughter—" She hesitated, eyes full of pain. "My daughter destroyed our lives." Emily froze. The words pierced deeper than any confession. That night, the house was dark. Michael slept in his office. Laura locked herself in their room. Emily sat alone at the kitchen table, the faint blue glow of her phone illuminating unread messages, classmates calling her hero, others calling her monster. She didn't answer any of them. Outside, a car passed slowly down their street, headlights sliding across the living room walls. For a fleeting second, she thought of Sophie, where she might be, whether she hated her, whether she was safe. Emily whispered into the silence, "I did the right thing, didn't I?" But no answer came. Only the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant echo of her mother's quiet sobs. The truth was out, and so was she, exposed, isolated, and unsure if justice had been worth the cost. The air inside the Carson house had turned heavy, thick with resentment and silence. Days had passed since the fallout, but the wounds hadn't scabbed over. They had festered. Emily avoided her father, slipping from room to room like a ghost. Laura barely spoke, her body present but her mind shattered somewhere between grief and disbelief. The once warm house felt cold now, every photograph on the wall a lie. It was a Friday night when Michael finally snapped. Emily was sitting at the dining table, scrolling through news articles, still dissecting the scandal. Every headline was the same: "Beloved doctor exposed by daughter." Her stomach churned each time she saw it, but she couldn't stop reading. Behind her, she heard the creak of the floorboards. Michael's reflection appeared in the dark window, his eyes sunken, jaw tense. "Do you feel proud of yourself?" he asked quietly. Emily froze. "I don't." "Don't lie," he cut in, voice low but shaking. "You wanted to destroy me, and you did." She turned slowly to face him. "I wanted you to stop lying. To Mom. To me. To everyone who ever trusted you." Michael slammed his hand on the table, making the glasses tremble. "You don't know what it's like, Emily. You don't know what it means to live with emptiness every single day." "So you filled it with her?" she shouted. "With my best friend?" His eyes flickered with shame, then anger. "It wasn't about her age, it wasn't about—" "Don't you dare make excuses!" Her voice cracked through the silence like lightning. Michael stepped closer, his tone breaking. "It wasn't love, Emily. It was loneliness. I was drowning, and Sophie, she just listened." Tears welled in his eyes, but Emily only saw manipulation. "You chose to destroy us," she hissed. "You don't get to cry about it now." He shook his head, voice trembling. "You think you know everything, but you're just a child who played God. And you're a coward who calls betrayal loneliness." Something inside him snapped. He reached out, grabbing her wrist as she turned away. "Don't walk away from me." The sound of glass shattering filled the air, her elbow knocking over a picture frame. Their family portrait crashed to the floor, the glass slicing across Michael's palm as he tried to pick it up. Blood streaked the photo. The perfect family, now scarred. Emily stumbled back, breath shaking. "Let go of me." Michael released her, chest heaving. "You've ruined everything." "No!" she screamed, voice breaking. "You already did." Laura's voice echoed from upstairs, terrified. "Michael? Emily? What's happening?" Neither answered. The air crackled with years of buried pain. Emily's hand trembled as she reached for her phone. "I'm calling the police." Michael's expression shifted. Disbelief, then horror. "Emily, don't." But her fingers were already dialing. Her voice shook as she spoke. "Yes, I need help. My dad, he's out of control." When the red and blue lights flashed outside minutes later, Laura stood frozen in the doorway, sobbing. Two officers entered cautiously, separating father and daughter. Michael didn't resist. He just stared at Emily. Eyes hollow, voice a whisper. "You'll never understand what you've done." Emily's reply came softly, through trembling lips. "Neither will you." As the officers led him away, shards of glass crunched under their boots. The family portrait lay face down on the floor, blood-stained and broken, just like the people it once depicted. Outside, the siren wailed into the night, carrying the last echo of what used to be a family. 3 months later, the air in Ridgeview's county courthouse felt colder than winter itself. The case that had once been whispered about behind closed doors was now public. Headlines, opinion pieces, gossip threads. Everyone knew the Carsons. Everyone had an opinion. Emily sat in the second row, hands clasped in her lap, eyes fixed on the man sitting just a few feet away. Her father. Dr. Michael Carson. He looked smaller than she remembered, thinner, his once confident shoulders now bent inward. His suit hung loosely on him, and his gaze never lifted from the floor. The courtroom murmured softly before the judge entered. Cameras weren't allowed, but the energy was still electric, like everyone had come to watch the final scene of a tragedy they couldn't turn away from. Laura sat 2 rows behind Emily. She wore black, her face pale, her hands twisting a tissue until it nearly tore. She hadn't spoken to either of them since the night the police came. When Emily tried to look back, hoping for even a flicker of forgiveness, Laura's eyes stayed fixed on the front, cold and unreadable. Case number 4817, the state versus Dr. Michael Carson, the clerk called. Michael stood slowly. The prosecutor listed the charges: professional misconduct, abuse of authority, violation of medical ethics. Each word felt like a hammer against Emily's ribs. The defense spoke next, painting him as a man who had made a grave mistake, not a monster. But Emily knew better. She could still hear his voice the night he grabbed her arm, still see the blood on the photo frame. Then came the testimony. Sophie's. Her face appeared on a large screen at the front, remote video from an undisclosed location. Her hair was shorter now, her expression drained of the sparkle it once had. She looked like a shadow of the girl who used to sleep over in Emily's room, laughing until sunrise. The room held its breath as she began. "Dr. Carson told me it wasn't wrong," Sophie said, voice trembling. "He said no one would understand. I believed him." Emily's heart squeezed painfully. She wanted to hate Sophie, but in that moment she saw only a frightened girl, manipulated, confused, and broken, just like her. The defense objected, but the damage was already done. Michael lifted his head for the first time, eyes glistening. He didn't deny it. He didn't even speak. When the judge called for a recess, the courtroom buzzed with murmurs. Laura rose and walked out without a glance at anyone. Emily stayed seated, numb. A few rows behind, someone whispered, "That's the daughter who exposed him." Emily pretended not to hear, but the words sliced deep. She had once believed exposing the truth would bring peace. Instead, it had left her standing in ruins. No father, no mother, no best friend. Just a name tied forever to shame. When court resumed, Michael was asked if he wished to speak before sentencing. He stood, voice soft but steady. "To my wife, my daughter, and to Sophie, I am sorry. I don't ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it, but I hope, someday, the truth of my weakness will stop defining them." He sat back down, eyes glistening. Emily felt something twist inside her. Not forgiveness, not love, just exhaustion. The gavel struck once, echoing through the chamber like a final heartbeat. Michael Carson was sentenced. License permanently revoked. Probation, community service, a name forever tarnished. As the judge exited, silence filled the room. No one spoke, not even Laura. Emily stood, legs weak, and glanced at her father one last time. He looked at her, not as a doctor or a criminal, but as a father who'd finally lost everything. Neither of them said a word. That silence, heavy, unending, followed her out of the courtroom like a shadow that would never fade. 5 years had passed since the courtroom silence, yet Ridgeview still remembered the scandal like a scar that refused to fade. The Carson house had long been sold. Laura now lived quietly in another town. Emily, 23, lived alone in a small apartment above a bookstore, her name no longer whispered in gossip. Just forgotten, as if people had grown tired of tragedy. But forgetting was something Emily could never do. Some nights, she still woke to the sound of the gavel echoing through her dreams, that sharp, final sound that ended her childhood. Other nights it was Sophie's trembling voice she heard, or her mother's cry from the night of the fight. And then there was him. Her father's face appeared sometimes in memories, weary eyes, soft apologies too late to matter. She hadn't spoken to him since the trial. Letters came, but she never opened them. She told herself it was better that way. That morning the sky was pale gray, quiet, heavy with rain. Emily sat at her kitchen table with a mug of coffee gone cold when her phone buzzed with a notification. One new voicemail. Unknown number. She hesitated. Something about the number looked familiar. An area code from her old hometown. Her finger hovered over play. Then she pressed it. Emily, it's your dad. Her breath caught. The voice was older, slower, but unmistakably his. If you're hearing this, I guess I'm gone. A pause. I've been sick for a while. Didn't want to burden anyone. I know I don't have the right to ask you to listen, but I just needed to say I'm sorry. Rain began to patter softly against the window. Emily sat frozen, phone pressed to her chest, every heartbeat echoing in her ears. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope one day you'll remember the good parts of me. Before I lost my way. Before I hurt you. You were the best part of my life, Emily. You always were. His voice trembled near the end, breaking on a sigh. Take care of your mom and yourself. Goodbye, sweetheart. Then the line clicked, leaving only the sound of rain. Emily stared at the screen. Voicemail from Michael Carson. Saved 2 days ago. Her throat tightened, her eyes burning. The world around her blurred. The walls, the rain, the years of silence collapsing into that one fragile voice. For a long time, she didn't move. Then, with trembling fingers, she tapped delete. The message disappeared, erased as if it had never existed. Emily set the phone down, exhaling shakily. In the quiet that followed, she realized how strange truth could be, how it gave freedom and punishment in equal measure. She stood by the window, watching the rain trail down the glass like tears. Somewhere, far away, the town still whispered his name, maybe even hers. But it didn't matter anymore. The storm outside softened, a faint light breaking through the clouds. Emily closed her eyes and whispered to the empty room, "Truth has its own price." Then she turned away, leaving behind the echo of a voice she once loved, and the life that truth had forever changed.